Good evening and welcome to the Community Preservation Committee of the Town of North Andover on this Thursday, October 12th. Our chairman, Bill Callahan, is on his way, so as vice chair, I'm just going to kick this meeting off. And as part of that kickoff, I have to read a statement first. Pursuant to Chapter 2, the Acts of 2023, this meeting will be conducted via in-person and via remote means. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with the right and/or requirements to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at www.northandovermass.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so on their television by tuning to the Comcast Channel 8, Verizon Channel 6, Channel 26, or online at www.northandover.cam.org. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. If the public would like to participate in the public meeting, please email your questions or comments prior to or even during the meeting to CPC mails at northandoverma.gov. The question or comment will be provided to the committee before the meeting or read during the proceedings if received during or shortly before the meeting. Sometimes I feel like those radio blurbs, they speed through the legal announcement at the end, but I wasn't going to do that. I also told Bill that I'd probably go through and step through some of the basic things that we have on the agenda. And the first thing on the agenda, if everyone has it or don't have it, is the fiscal year 25 calendar. Essentially, the overall big target is the annual town meeting of May 21, 2024. And really to get prepared for that, Bill has, I'll call it penned in, doesn't mean it's not, everything could change. But he has penned in here March 14, 2024 for project approval. Prior to that, in early February, we have the application deadline, formal project reviews that we all need to be prepped for. Also, which I thought was pretty interesting, is the pre-application reviews from our first time last year. You get people who are interested and discussing what their ideas might be. And it's really a time for education, seeing what's going to be coming out there. Any questions? And again, it's been in the packet if you don't have it. Next thing I'll just briefly go over is the CPC financials. Currently we have a balance of roughly, let's see this right, $16.6 million in the account. Reading this right. Of which I don't have off the top of my head here how much is encumbered.
Just look at the amount of the open projects.
Amount of the open projects. Hang on. That'll be a different
So
product.
the other one, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
And encumbered right now, we have $1.9 million. Oh,
No,
it's two.
it should be a lot more than that.
Lot more than that.
Should be the remaining balance in all the projects.
Yep. There's not a grand total, unfortunately, so you'll have to bear with me. 6.9 on the recreation. on the historical, it's recreation and land, by the way. And on the historical, we have $2.6 million. And on the housing, 1.9. So if anyone can add that up, that's fine. It's not a grand total there. So
7 and.
2, I should be able to do this.
Well,
4.5,
it's like 12 altogether.
4.5, 10.3, roughly $10.4 million of the $16 million is encumbered with open projects. So that gives us a balance of roughly $5 to $6 million. The problem with the open projects, and Bill's trying to address it really, and I'd like to have him speak to it, is getting, did we receive anything at all, Zach, relative to status reports of any of the open projects at all in the last month?
Yeah, so I sent out the form, the quarterly reporting form. The only ones I got back so far were in-house, so Lori, who works in the purchasing office, she was responsible for like 3 of the projects, so I have a few from her. Jean is responsible for 2 of them, so I have 2 from her. I have 1 from Andrew, and I've gotten some feedback from people who are working on them. Like Stan has like 5, he's like responsible for 5 of them, and he's working on those. And then I was talking to Maggie from the Housing Authority the past week or so, and we just processed a disbursement for her. So I'm gonna probably send out another reminder either tomorrow or Monday, because we told them the deadline was the 16th of October so that we could get on the agenda for next meeting. But yeah, hopefully if I send another reminder, people will be on it.
Yeah, it's hard to threat.
Yeah.
It's hard to say, hey, look, your project has been outstanding for 10 years and you still got a balance. We haven't heard word from you, but I mean, we have to be able to push along, and maybe it's just a matter of some additional
Well, I
phone
mean,
calls.
You can, if you really look at the list, you can kind of go through and pretty much know which ones are sort of out there and which ones are the ones you want to go after if you haven't heard
Oh,
anything about
absolutely.
it.
I mean, I haven't, Rolling Ridge, I mean, I've heard Rolling Ridge has still got some use for the money, but I haven't heard anything from them more formally. So
Well,
that's,
it's not it's the town, really. It's not Rolling Ridge, it's not Rolling Ridge's
cool.
money. It's our money.
purchase conservation, you're right, $79,000. So, Zach, how come you haven't said anything about Rolling Ridge?
I'd have to coordinate, I mean, I got the contact list, Gene and I double checked it for every single project, I sent out all the emails, so I'm still waiting to hear back from everyone, but I wanted to have an update on this meeting, but I just don't have enough responses yet on the reports. And hopefully going forward, the plan is that we're gonna send out, ahead of each quarter, the start of each quarter, send out the sheet, or send out the forms that we have everything, updated and on time, so that we're not doing, we're not scrambling like every so often to
Yeah.
try to get the reports in.
Clearly, we need a process where
Yeah.
Well, there is.
the committee here has the
there
information
is
ahead of
actually a
time.
process in place.
I hate to be making decisions on the fly right here, kind of thing, because whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Zach?
And I was trying to automate it and just make sure that just have it more, on a regular basis.
And if people respond, they're
Okay.
bullshit answers.
Zach, I'll provide you a response on the middle school athletic field complex. I'm just waiting back for an answer from DKC. But
Okay.
that remaining balance on the design fund, I believe, is going to be used,
Okay.
without a doubt.
Sure.
I think we just give up on it.
Any other comments regarding the project balances at all?
Just the library, if we can get an answer from them. They have 2 outstanding projects. One, I think they're having trouble getting bids on. But I think at first we were gonna do the stairs, and then we found that the way they were gonna do them, they couldn't, so they had to go to.
Couldn't get any bid
But
on
are they still supposed to have both projects, or do they? Last I heard from Steve Foster that they got 0 bids on that project, even with the extra money.
Has Steve been sort of fronting that effort, or is it the library
Steve
people
has been
themselves?
fronting it.
Yeah, okay, so, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I'll try to provide more and hopefully response stuff, but.
To send you a final notice on it.
Yeah.
Your funds will be rescinded.
You know, as part of the application process, I don't know, I forget what it says in there, but I think that'd be something in there that gives them a heads up, says, look at, you know, delinquent accounts will be collected in full or whatever.
I guess I haven't read it lately, but wasn't there something in there that
Yes.
said you had to give updates?
Yes, you're supposed
Oh,
to get.
it does say that.
Quarterly updates.
But there's no stick.
There's no
though,
system.
Terry. There's no stick that actually says, hey, look at,
No,
so.
that's been in place for a while, too.
And then, would you refresh my memory relative to the library, though? We had the libraries, both of them are associated with the stairs? Yeah. And no bids.
No bids.
No bids.
So what's the plan? We don't know.
We don't
We
know.
gotta find out.
Okay. And then once we start moving in this thing, we can clean out some of the stuff that has been closed out altogether.
Yeah.
Okay. Next easy thing for me to go through really is the meeting minutes. Anyone want to take a few minutes and just sort of look at them? Kill me.
I wasn't here, so I'm not gonna vote.
Enough to approve. 2, 3, 4.
Hey Terry, anything more on the Stevens Coolidge property?
No, we met with them. They wrote a proposal, the town, it's right now with the town lawyer. They sent an email out, I think it was yesterday, asking the town lawyer if it's been agreed on. She said that she would have to get back to him next week. So there's still, it's between the lawyer and them on the written agreement. But and when I sat in the meeting, everybody was in agreement, it's just how it's written, so,
So it's a lawyer thing again. Okay.
yeah. Should be very quick.
Lawyers. Do I have a motion relative to the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes as drafted.
Do we have enough to have vote
Oh,
on
I
that?
was, that's what I was just looking at.
We don't have enough to vote on it.
I don't.
But I'm glad
think
you guys
we do.
spent some time.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay. Relative to the application process itself, there is a document that was part of the package of the submissions and forms. And the only feedback that I got was really from Ron, who basically wanted us to add an addendum in there, add a section there, I'm not sure you had it or not, that it had an historical providence to actually document what that is or why, so that they're not, the historical commission is not tracking down and pounding the sand trying to find out what's going on. So I thought that was a pretty important piece of information to add to it. Other than that, I don't think it's really changed all that much from the prior year. Any questions at all? And again, part of the packet was some information relative to giving people a heads up, headline, bring us your project ideas. And it's basically a bulletin board kind of thing relative to the November 9th meeting, say, come one, come all. Give us what your thoughts are, and I'd like to hear it. Bill also presented here his handy dandy chart about where the money has been spent or appropriated by fiscal year. But again, for those in the audience who haven't seen it, they're more than welcome to it. Would you like to?
I wouldn't know what I was looking at.
It's a lot of fancy bars.
There's not a separate line for Ridgewood, Dave. There's not a separate line for Ridgewood.
Oh, I think there is. I'm kidding, Dave. I really don't have much of anything more.
Well, what else is on the agenda? What's contentious?
We have, actually, there's absolutely nothing contentious. The application and associated forms,
Business,
the notice of the public meeting,
there's not really much on
the CPC financials we went through, but I think I gotta tell you, financials, they haven't changed much since I've been on board, and I haven't been on board that long. Probably haven't been changed that much since Terry's been on board, or John. They really do, the process has to be improved so that we know where things are, what motion, what movement's going and what isn't. And, I'm sorry?
What do you want that you don't have in terms of the numbers?
Especially things that are like, I like even current information, for example, on the library stairs. If there is information that says, we've got, you know, in their plan, they said that we would put out the bid to have repairs of the stairs.
that's what
If
the
they've hit a roadblock, that information ought to be coming back to us.
That's-
No, that's
That's
fine,
what the
but that's
update's
not
for.
in the financials.
No.
The
No,
the
no.
financials come from the accountant. If you want
No.
status,
Oh, no,
product
no, I'm trying to
status-
roll it all together here. So he's got the part of the process there, where he's reaching out to the owners of these projects to give us the status reports,
Which is the quarterly updates, which
Just the quarter, yeah.
which then feeds into,
provides you the information.
gives me
you're asking.
information I need to understand the financials better. Relative to project balances. John, does that help you?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, you got a total balance, it's less what's been spent to date, and you see how much money's left. And then for the ones that are old and there's a lot of money left, yeah, you ask the question of, how come the money's not being spent? I mean, I agree with you that knowing the status of the projects is important, but I'm just trying to figure out what the end game is here.
The end game there is two. One, to see if anything can be moved along, what's going on, giving you information, if they come back for more. I mean, what if the Stevens Library comes back for more money for the stairs? It'd be nice to have that information as far
yeah.
as status reports go.
Fair enough,
And to me, that feeds into the project balances.
okay.
It's all part of the status there.
In the past, when we've had several things open by this one person, whatever, we've invited them to the next
Yeah,
meeting.
we brought them in.
And that might be a good project to ask them somebody to come in and give us an update
I like that.
at the next meeting. And if there's any other projects that are like that out there, we might want to ask somebody to come in and give
Yeah.
us an update.
Yep. You know, just a simple information, one of the projects I know is going, I assume is going very well, John, is the ramp, or the boat ramp on Lake Kikuchi. I assume that's going well because there's just a good group of guys, but that's an assumption on my
I haven't
part.
seen anything going on, though. That's the-
So the point.
Yeah.
It'd be nice as fiduciary responsible people here that we basically say, hey, you know, things are, your money's well spent, so.
Okay.
To speak on the boat ramp, I talked to John Borghese and he said it's been closed out. So that's something that's, like, when I sent out the quarterly reporting sheet, we actually had the invoice for the amount that was unspent on the financial sheet, but we just hadn't updated it yet. And Lynn, I'm still working with Lynn, finance director, on updating the financial sheet. Like, she's been out of the office for the past week, so.
So that must have been all engineering then.
I think it was,
Yeah.
Yeah, so now they should be coming back for the next phase, right?
yes.
Which, that's critically important. By the way, I think a lot of what I'm talking about may come more to fruition by the next meeting.
Yeah.
And it won't be perfect, but it'll be at least a step in the right direction. I don't have much of anything else. We can't approve the minutes. We'll do that at the next meeting.
Is Dave here for a particular?
Dave, are you here for a reason? Would you step up, sir?
If I could take a few moments of your time.
Thank you, Terry.
Some time ago,
Terry, just for the audience,
I sat
and just
down.
introduce yourself. You're Dave.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name's Dave Rand, and I live at 280 Dale Street.
Okay, thank you.
And I am the oldest living member of the North Andover Police Department. And I have no intention of giving up that title.
Good for you.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, really, thank you for service too.
But the reason that I came here tonight, and I really have to be very careful because I don't hear. Thankful that the United States government has given me a disability, And so I can get my hearing aids through the Veterans Administration. And I have a device that I can turn my hearing aids up or turn them down. And a lot of times when my family comes asking for money, I just shut them off. So but I have sat down with the town manager, and we've discussed a lot of things. And one of the things that I discussed with her was in 2015, at about 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke up and I couldn't move. I was completely paralyzed on my right-hand side. And my wife asked me if there was something wrong, and I said, yeah, I'm paralyzed. And so I went into the hospital and I went through the process. And for the first time in my life, I found myself a disabled person. And I'm not sure whether you realize it or not, but, and you all are very much aware of the fact that any money spent by the state or the town of North Andover has to be spent, and consideration for handicapped people have to be given. If you go up into the old center and you look for a handicapped spot, it's on Academy Road, right by the Unitarian Church. And I reminded the town manager that if you go close to the old center, the center itself, there isn't any handicapped spots at all, none of them. If you travel over this town, there's very few handicapped spots. If you try to, you have rightfully given the trail committee a considerable amount of money. There isn't any trail in this town that's handicap accessible, none of them. And we don't think about these things very often. But when you're walking with a cane or with crutches, or if you're in a wheelchair, it means a great deal to you that you're able to participate. I go down to the reservation at Salisbury Beach quite often in the summertime because I can sit there and pick up the breeze off the river. And the only thing that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has given, well, if you have a handicap placard, you can get into the reservation without, you just drive through. They see a handy, you don't have to pay. But once you get in the reservation, if you try to get down onto the beach, it's virtually impossible. There's one device, and it's made out of PVC pipe and has some big wheels on it. And if somebody has a relative that's completely handicapped, they can put them in this device and take them. They put mats down on the sand for a ways. And once you get to the end of the mat, there's nowhere to go. Up at the Edwards Farm, see, I knew Mr. Nat. I met Mr. Nat Stevens when I was just a little boy. And I was very close to one of the family that lived in the house, the Nelson family. And Ernie Nelson, Mr. Nelson was the caretaker for the Stevens estate, and Mrs. Nelson was the cook. And so Mr. Nat Ernie and I would go into the house from time to time, so we would tell Ernie's mother where we were going. And Mr. Nat would come down and he'd sit with us and he'd talk to us. And at that house up on the top of the hill, that's the carriage house. And there's a place in that house where the roof comes out and it shelters part of the driveway. And that's where the carriages used to come in and empty out, so the people didn't have to get out into the rain. And I suggested to the town manager, wouldn't it be wonderful if underneath that shelter we could put an electric wheelchair, and if some individual in town had a relative, a husband, a wife, a child that was confined to a wheelchair, they could go up there and they could get in that wheelchair and they could wheel themselves out to the half-mile hill. And they could look at that beautiful view that we photograph and we use for the town. And everybody, well, when you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you can't walk, I was one of the lucky ones, and because I could speak. And most of my friends that have strokes can't speak. It takes away their ability to talk, and it takes away their ability to see, and it takes away a lot of your abilities. I still have some of mine. And the thing that sometimes you kind of wish that it took some of them away and left others. But it makes you realize what a handicapped person has to go through. And when you take that into consideration, we all should realize that maybe one day we're going to be handicapped. I've lived in this town all my life, and I know that we would never have been able to accomplish the things that we've been able to accomplish were it not for the Community Preservation Committee. I also sit on the board of directors of the Ridgewood Cemetery. That's where I spend my time. And just from what we have been able to do in cooperation with the CDC at the Ridgewood Cemetery. And the nice thing about the Ridgewood Cemetery is I've been on the board for 30 years now, and none of us get a dime. None of us get a dime in pay. And I find that people that volunteer like you have such a satisfaction in knowing you can accomplish certain things. And you don't have to be paid a great deal of money. And so it never dawned, and when I first moved out of Dale Street, my in-laws said to me, "You're taking my daughter way out in the woods. I can't get out of my driveway. There's so many cars passing by my house right now." And when we were building 495, Paul Fawn and I were standing by the engineer that was in charge of building 495. And he had a nickname, they called him Sparky. And we were standing there, and Paul LaFawn turned to Sparky and he said, "Did you find the wells in back of the houses?" And Sparky said, "What wells?" And he said, "Well, all of these wells on Middlesex Street and down through here, we all had wells in our backyard." So Sparky had to run off and get a bulldozer and find all of the wells in that area. And then he came back, and Paul and I were down again. And Sparky turned to Paul and he said, "Well, what have you got to scare the hell out of me today?" And Paul turned and he said, "Well, did you find the Perry Street dump?" And Sparky said, "Where is the Perry Street dump?" And Paul looked at him and he said, "You're an educated man. You're the engineer in charge of this project. And you don't know where Perry Street is?" He said, "You can find it on a map." And we all started laughing about it. But it proved that sometimes we can see things and we really don't know what we're looking at. I worked in Davis and Ferber Machine Company for about 6 years. My father worked there for 61 years. And that place is like a home to me. And when the rain started to fall and the water started to rise, and I saw what was happening in the shop, I had to run down and take a look. Because I knew that shop. I could walk through Davis and Ferber Machine Company with my eyes closed. And I would know exactly where I was all the time I was walking through the company. And nothing like that had ever happened before. And so it made me realize that as time goes on, things have a strange way of changing. And there's nothing anybody can ever do about it. We have to live with it, and we do live with it. And like I say, I know that we would never, ever been able to accomplish the things that we have been able to accomplish were it not for the Community Preservation Act. Every now and then the legislature does something that they get right. And the Community Preservation Act was one of those things that they got right. And so many things have been accomplished by it. And I just want to congratulate you for the job you do. Thank you.
One thing, Dave, that you did say that did perk my interest, and it had to do with the handicap. And whether it be recreation or open land. And it's something, a consideration, just a thought, that, yeah, you know, when someone puts together an application for one of those type of items, you know, is it handicap accessible?
Well, every penny that we spend, we should consider the handicap.
Yeah.
That's gonna be the nice part of the project that we're doing down by the lake.
Yeah.
It's gonna be one of the places where everybody, hey, no matter what your ability, you're gonna be able to go sit at the lake and enjoy the water. And it's probably gonna be the only place at the lake that we can do that, which is gonna be, that's fantastic.
Okay, this is an idea, is the kind of place here, and Dave, you generated it. Is that something, you can't mandate use of funds in a certain way, but is it something that ought to be a flag or a item that people ought to think about when they're putting their application together for the recreation, even housing, all the areas. Is there something to do with ADA handicap that,
Well, there's others.
as a consideration, that's all.
State building codes that have to be applied to. So.
I'm sorry, say that again?
State building code for accessible
Yep.
access,
But,
depending upon what the project is.
But again, trails, no.
I just,
Trails are tough because of where you may
I-
pass through.
Especially the way our roads are, our trails are, I get that.
there's a memorial down at the police station in the names of all of the men, and yet it's all men on there because we haven't had a woman pass away in the police station yet. I have outlived every single name on that memorial. Every single one. All of my friends. And I'm the only one left.
Let's keep your name off it for a while.
Well, I'm marking on the spot.
Thank you. Basically, Bill, we've gotten through the meeting. The only thing we couldn't do is approve the minutes since we didn't have the quorum for the minutes. John wasn't here the last time.
Okay.
So we could probably approve the minutes and get that done with now.
Right. Was there anything else that you wanted to look through?
Yeah,
with the-
before we, is there, so we did go through that.
Yeah.
Is there more you want to say about the November 9th?
No, I
meeting?
think it's just, it's just getting the word out, and, so I'll send we'll send a bunch of emails next week and try to drum up interest, and, I'll talk to Sarah Brush of the town and say, like, let's see if we can get, a bunch of people in front of us, and word of mouth and so forth, getting a lot of people here. I think that's the important thing.
Yeah. Will there be any slimmed down presentation of what a CPC is all about?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought I'd take the presentation we did a couple years ago and just slim it down. Just a couple pictures, a little talk about the process, and I think a lot of times too, it's hearing from people like what makes a good project. Like I think, and that's really helpful for people. I think when they hear like, okay, I got to really hew to these, 4 areas, and and like engaging a lot of stakeholders early. I think that's helpful for people, for applicants, is to figure that out early.
Might want to stress progress reports.
Too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of hard on that a little bit earlier. But I think we're gonna get some more information, better quality information next meeting. It won't solve 100%, but it's the right movement, right direction. Relative to the minutes,
Motion to approve the minutes as drafted.
do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm abstaining.
Yep. John abstained. Anything else? Everything go fine?
Yeah, just a lot of driving.
I bet.
Do I have a motion? We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So John, you understand where I'm